Welcome to NTD News Today. I'm Don Ma. Here are top stories. 2 protests took place in New York City Saturday after ICE raids, including one sparked by an 11th grader being detained during an asylum hearing. Protests in Los Angeles stretched from Friday into the weekend. That comes as police and protesters clashed outside a federal detention center following dozens of immigration raids across the city. The Trump administration has responded by deploying 2,000 National Guard troops to the area. Toxins around us might be making it harder to lose weight, but targeted detoxes could actually help. An expert in obesity medicine explains how it all works. Summer jobs can help teens lay the groundwork for a strong financial future, but how can parents teach smart money habits? An expert breaks it down.
This is NTD News Today, live from our global headquarters in New York City.
Good afternoon, and thanks for joining us here today. The Los Angeles protests weren't the only ICE-related incidents yesterday. At least 2 separate incidents tied to ICE raids took place in New York City on Saturday. More than 20 people were arrested after over 100 protesters tried to block federal authorities from conducting raids in Lower Manhattan. Angry demonstrators yelled obscenities at police officers. Objects were thrown at an unmarked white van as it exited 26 Federal Plaza. And protesters attempted to sit in front of it to block its path. Another protest occurred after an 11th grader was detained when he showed up at an asylum court hearing. Mayor Eric Adams' office released the following statement about the ICE arrests. Quote, "We are aware of and concerned about an incident involving a public school student who was reported to be detained after attending an immigration court hearing, and we're gathering information. Our city is less safe when people are afraid to use public resources, including going to their court hearings, and thus feel forced to hide in the shadows." And the Trump administration said it's sending 2,000 National Guard troops as officers clashed with about 100 protesters in the Paramount area of southeast Los Angeles. Some people were waving Mexican flags while others had respiratory masks covering their faces.
Large flames and thick smoke were coming from a burning car on Saturday. It happened as federal agents and protesters faced off for a second day after immigration raids. Fireworks exploded outside the Metropolitan Detention Center, and law enforcement personnel fired less lethal rounds at protesters. That comes as the city entered a second straight night of demonstrators against immigration raids. This all started after Immigration and Customs Enforcement officers carried out search warrants at several locations on Friday. Early in the face-off, some protesters hurled chunks of broken concrete toward officers. Police in riot gear then deployed tear gas and flashbangs to disperse the crowd. Police issued a citywide tactical alert just hours after declaring the protests unlawful assemblies. The DHS said in a statement that recent ICE operations in Los Angeles resulted in the arrest of 118 immigrants. That included 5 people linked to criminal organizations and people with prior criminal histories.
An illegal immigrant from El Salvador is back in the U.S. after having been deported to his home country. Kilmar Abrego Garcia is facing charges in the U.S. for allegedly smuggling illegal immigrants. Let's now bring in our international correspondent, Arian Pazdar, who's in Latin America. So, Arian, good afternoon. What is the latest on this case, and what are the exact charges? What are the U.S. officials saying on this?
Hey Don, good to see you. Thanks for having me. So just as a reminder for our viewers real quick, the case of Kilmar Abrego Garcia made nationwide headlines after he was deported to a mega prison in El Salvador. Some lawmakers actually went to El Salvador trying to visit Garcia and advocating for his return to the US. That's mostly because a judge had ordered in 2019 that Garcia shouldn't be deported to El Salvador because of gang ties he might have there. But on Friday, the DOJ, Department of Justice, now gave new details about this case. Attorney General Pam Bondi says that Garcia was part of a human smuggling operation in the US for 9 years. And so he allegedly took people, illegal immigrants, from the border and transported them further inland. And according to Bondi, some of those operations were especially bad. Let's take a look at what she said on Friday.
The grand jury found smuggling people throughout our country, MS-13 members, violent gang terrorist organization members throughout our country. This is especially disturbing because Abrego Garcia is also alleged with transporting minor children. The defendant traded the innocence of minor children for profit.
Now, I just want to add real quick, Don, that the attorney for Garcia denies all of those claims, calling the case baseless. He says that the DOJ doesn't actually have any proof for those accusations. According to the attorney, all of those accusations are just based on statements made by individuals who are either in prison or who are facing prosecution right now. So the attorney suggests that those individuals are lying basically to strike a deal with the federal government. Don?
So, Arian, Garcia's return to the U.S., pretty controversial to say the least, right? After the deportation, judges had ordered him to be brought back, but the Trump administration was against that. What is President Trump saying now that Garcia is in fact back in the U.S.?
Yeah, so this case really did make waves for weeks, actually. And as we already mentioned, in the end, President Trump's own Justice Department actually asked El Salvador to bring Garcia back. And Trump on Friday said that he agrees with that. He says he welcomes that decision because this way Garcia can face the consequences for the crimes he allegedly committed in the US. But there is a second side to the story, which is that Trump criticizes the fact that throughout this entire case, which has been spanning over weeks now, throughout this case, local judges have been ordering the federal government to bring Garcia back. And a district judge in Massachusetts actually played a key role in this. Now, President Trump says that those local judges are trying to do the job that's actually meant for the president to do. Let's take a look at what Trump said on Friday regarding this.
Look, all of these people, these judges that want to try and run the country. The judges are a local judge trying to run the country. And frankly, we have to do something because the judges are trying to take the place of a president that won in a landslide. And that's not supposed to be the way it is.
Now, real quick regarding what's next in this case, Garcia will have his court hearings on Friday the 13th, actually. And the DOJ already said that after the completion of his sentence, Garcia will be deported again. Don?
Okay, Arian, thank you very much for that. And joining us now to discuss the Trump administration ordering National Guard troops to deploy to Los Angeles following violent confrontations between ICE agents and protesters is Arif Halaby, former LAPD officer, and also joining us is Robin Bureau, Democratic strategist, U.S. Army Ranger veteran. So first of all, good afternoon to you both. Arif, I'll start with you. Is deploying National Guard troops, do you think, the appropriate response to the current situation at hand? You have critics, for example, Gavin Newsom saying it's only going to escalate tensions.
No, the idea of a governor or mayor is to protect their citizens. When you abdicate that responsibility and allow businesses to be looted, to allow individuals to be attacked, to allow the police to be attacked, and the governor sits by and does nothing, you have a problem. The president's job is to protect the people. If you see a governor like Gavin Newsom or the governor in Minnesota when the George Floyd riots, or you see Portland when they gave up for months parts of the city and allowed a police station to be overtaken. When you see governors abdicate their responsibility, what do? Just sit there and put their hands in the air? The president doesn't stand for this. I don't think people understand. When I was part of the LA riots as a police officer for 34 hours, I think I stayed awake. You get an idea of understanding what the political ramifications are. Very important to understand this. I watched, and you could see exactly the police tactics turn where political influence was involved. Instead of stopping at a very early stage, politics got involved, and the left wing has always wanted riots and chaos, and that's what they got.
So, Robin, what are your thoughts on the situation? Newsom saying Los Angeles currently has no unmet need.
Oh, that is absolutely. I agree with Arif about mayors and the governor abdicating their responsibility here, and that's unconscionable. I myself ran for mayor of the city of Tucker, and would have been dealing with this had this happened where I live. And I would take a hands-on approach, especially as a combat veteran. But no, I promise you that Democrats, by and large, the majority of us do not want riots, do not want chaos. There is a small percentage, a very vocal percentage of them that do want that, but that is not the majority. About 90% of us, maybe even more, do not want that. We want to live in safe communities. That is what Americans all want. But I want to say that President Trump needs to be careful with his words right here, because he just said on Truth Social that he just thanked the National Guard for doing what they're doing on the ground right now, that they're doing a fantastic job on the ground, and they're not there yet.
Okay, so in your view as well, it is justified, given the situation, of course, that a strong response, 2,000 National Guard troops deployed from the government, it's justified, Robin?
Yes, it could be. Now, I will tell you, I did my due diligence on this. I looked through the comments on social media to see what my friends on the left were saying about this. They're very upset that National Guard troops are being deployed for this, and that the president chose to not do that for January 6th. When the Capitol was being overrun by some of
January
his supporters.
6th, listen, Washington, D.C. controlled, and you can see now it's all been public, it's been released. Nancy Pelosi and the mayor decided not to deploy the National Guard. President Trump and Vice President Pence decided to deploy it. They gave the approval. Washington, D.C. mayor and Nancy Pelosi, they controlled, and they said no.
I disagree with that. That's not what I'm seeing. I would love to see your proof of that. That is something that I've been seeing a lot of on social media from my friends on the right, trying to excuse what happened on January 6th. But the president, by and large, I mean, we saw the video. We had video proof of he and Melania and Ivanka sitting there laughing about this and watching this unfold on social media and take no action. He also didn't put out any statements on social media calling for this until several hours
let's stay on the
into it.
current situation here. Arif, do you agree or disagree with the characterization that perhaps this is militarization of civil policing, or that this is using military force against civilian protesters? Your thoughts on that point?
In 1992, I was part of the LA riots in West Los Angeles. We actually had 3 Black Hawk helicopters. How they say these helicopters don't have markings and they don't have lights. They actually did land. We saw 3 of them land at the Federal Building in West LA. By the time the National Guard came, it was about, probably the 3rd day. The riots had already stopped. The biggest issue is this. In the National Guard world, we had to deploy National Guard that did not come from Southern California. And the reason for that is they didn't want National Guard members to be shooting at their own neighbors and citizens. So they had to wait to bring them from Northern California, and it takes a lot to deploy them. I don't know where this particular group this group is coming from.
So, Robin, do you think these actions taken by the Trump administration, will they send a strong message to those who are thinking to resort to violence during protests against immigration enforcement? And maybe in the end, it's going to be a net positive for future safety. That's a good thing, right?
Yes, I certainly would hope so. I fought very much to protect our First Amendment right to free speech, but that doesn't include what's happening now. That doesn't include throwing bricks through storefronts, looting storefronts, setting things on fire. We would like to see peaceful protests. Get your message out there by all means, but do it peacefully, not what we're seeing right now.
And Arif, a similar question, was the deployment here a needed step to prevent further chaos?
It is. It goes to show that there's a line in the sand here. Part of these protesters, if you understand them, and you can see the difference between the ones that are there that are not, quote, professional protesters, that are not being paid directly or indirectly by some of the left-wing sources. You understand, if you occupy a place like Portland and you have all the tents the same, you realize somebody's paying these protesters. And this has gone on when we had Act Up LA and there were violence. We accepted regular protests at the time. And then the ACT UP group got very violent, and then it became Black Lives Matter and Antifa, and now it's this group. They'll end up calling themselves something different, but it's the same professional protesters. You see them all the time. I think they need to be told, both verbally and physically, that this will not be acceptable.
And Robin, what are your thoughts on President Trump saying on Truth Social that potentially suggesting that masks are no longer allowed at protests?
I don't know how he's going to enforce that. People still, COVID is still a thing. It's still out there. He can't very well mandate that people don't take proper medical precautions if they are test positive for COVID, for example. If I just recently test positive for COVID, I would have worn a mask out in public to protect other people from getting sick from my sickness. So I don't know how we can enforce that.
Arif, any thoughts on that?
Yeah, I would agree. It's difficult to enforce, if not impossible. There might be a local ordinance that you can tack on as an additional charge if they're arrested, as they often do, where they add multiple charges to be able to plead them down to a lesser charge. But I would say you have to be very clear. The protesters are not wearing masks for their public health. If they cared about public health, they wouldn't be, getting tear gas in their eyes. These men and women have been trained. There's actual training that they attend on how to deal with tear gas, how to deal with protesting, how to lock arms, and what to say to law enforcement. It's a full-on training schedule. And these men and women don't have jobs when they do this. You understand this is their job.
Well, all right. That's about the time we have for today. Thank you very much for you both for your time.
Thanks, Dan. Thank you, Dan.
Coming up, President Trump and Elon Musk went head-to-head in a social media clash this past week. David Lam brings us the latest. Many loan programs are tough for busy small business owners to access. Now lawmakers are pushing a bill to make that process easier. More just in a moment here on NTD News Today.
Looking for a healthy and smooth-tasting brew? Drop by Days Coffee Roasters today and explore our wide selection of specialty-grade, small-batch roasted coffee. Home to North America's first enzyme-fermented coffee, we source a wide selection of specialty-grade coffee beans from around the world, and our baristas are ready to craft your customized brew. Visit Days Coffee at 28 North Street, Middletown, New York. Come experience a brew like no other.
As we naturally age, many people are getting zero amount of this incredible and unique substance. That's when we start seeing an impact in our joints, skin, nails, and even our digestion.
People ask me, Dr. X, what is the #1 supplement I should be taking? My answer is multi-collagen protein.
People's reactions to me, people were like, what are you doing? What is going on? You look amazing. You have a glow about you.
What makes Ancient Nutrition Multi-Collagen stand out from other brands? 10 types of collagen. It's grass-fed, pasture-raised with vitamin C and probiotics. It's proven to reduce joint discomfort rapidly, continuously, and persistently. It improves the appearance of crow's feet after 4 weeks and improves skin tone after 8 weeks. And it promotes hair thickness, growth, and a reduction in hair breakage.
It has transformed everything from my hair. Like, my hair was starting to kind of just, come out, and I don't have that anymore. My skin feels amazing.
Call the number on your screen and find out how to get a free bottle when you order, plus free shipping and our 30-day money-back guarantee. And as a bonus, we will include Dr. Josh Axe and Jordan Rubin's revolutionary book, Multi-Collagen Makeover, free with your order, plus free shipping and free returns.
I have implicit trust in Dr. Axe because the plan worked. I'm living proof of it.
This is the collagen protein that is backed by clinical studies. It's what my family uses, it's what I use, and I know you're gonna benefit in a big way as well.
Love the results or get your money back. This special TV offer is not available in stores. Call the number on your screen or go online now.
What I thought was a complete life was nowhere near complete. But it is now.
Learn about adopting a teen at adoptuskids.org.
Elon Musk campaigned for President Trump's 2024 presidential run and was a key member in the Trump administration's fight against fraud and waste. But the two were involved in a public dispute this past week. They apparently disagreed over Trump's One Big Beautiful Bill Act. We're going live now with our reporter, David Lamb. So, David, good afternoon. Good to see you. What's the latest on the public feud between the president and Musk? And who was, of course, once by Trump's side?
Yeah. Hey, Don, good to see you. So following this fallout that just happened last week over social media, Musk suggested that he's considering creating a new political party that would go against what's already dominated by the two-party system. Now, Trump is taking this online, as mentioned earlier, Trump on Truth Social and Elon Musk on X. So in a phone interview with NBC News, Trump suggested that there would be repercussions if Musk starts to back Democratic candidates that are running against Republican lawmakers who are supporting this reconciliation bill. Now, let's take a look at what Trump recently said on Air Force One.
Well, we'll take a look at everything. I look at everything. He's got a lot of money. He gets a lot of subsidy. So we'll take a look at that. Only if it's fair for him and for the country. I would certainly think about it, deal, but it has to be fair.
And what are you going to do about the Tesla? Are you going to keep it, or are you going to...
I haven't thought about it.
Do you have any plans to contact...
I mean, I hope he does well with Tesla.
Do you have any plans to speak with Mr. Musk? This was one of your closest advisors.
No, I don't have any plans.
Now, earlier in the week, Elon Musk called this bill, quote, disgusting abomination, and that it would instead bring trillions of dollars of debt for the deficit for the U.S. Now, both Speaker Mike Johnson and the president say that Trump is just more concerned that the bill is cutting federal credits for electric vehicles, which Elon Musk is the CEO of Tesla. But Musk denies that and said he's more concerned about the deficit. Don?
And David, can you talk to us about what are other lawmakers saying about their relationship right now?
Yeah, Don. So Republican lawmakers obviously want these two to amend their problems and fix it, whereas some Democratic lawmakers are siding with Elon Musk. Let's take a look.
I feel like the kids of a bitter divorce where you're just saying, I really wish mommy and daddy would stop screaming.
Look, I believe in redemption. I hope we can resolve it and get everybody together again.
That Elon Musk has made the point that the bill is a disgusting abomination.
Yeah, so a lot's been happening this past week. So Musk even said on X that it was because of Musk's influence that Trump and the GOP won the 2024 election. Now, this prompted Trump to suggest that he might be cutting government funding for Elon Musk's companies. Now, Trump was recently asked, what does he plan to do with the relationship between them two? Trump said that he's just been busy with solving the country's problems, including international issues with communist China, Iran, and Russia, and that he hasn't reached out to Elon Musk yet, but he does wish him well. Don, back to you.
All right, David. Thank you very much. NTD News national correspondent reporting live from our California studio. David, always good to see you. Next, one big challenge small business owners face across the U.S. is that loan programs are hard to access because of complicated contract language. NTD's Steve Lance sat down with Representative Shiri Thandar to discuss how his bill could help. Here's more.
You're actually sponsoring a bipartisan piece of legislation called the Plain Language and Contracting Act. Walk us through what this bill does and how it might help to level the playing field for some small businesses trying to work within the federal government.
For 25 years, I ran small businesses, created jobs. So I understand the difficulties small businesses face. Many of the small business grants programs, loans programs are difficult to access, especially for small mama papa shops. These small shops, the owners are so busy providing services to their customers, working on marketing, getting revenues up, keeping up with the payroll, and some of the paperwork burden to qualify for small business loans or grants is just excessive. Small business owners don't have hours and hours to spend on these regulations. They don't have highly paid consultants that they could hire and afford to hire. So these regulations need to be made easier, simpler language, easier to access the forms on the website, one place where they can know if they qualify for certain incentives or not. So what I, along with my Republican colleague, Congressman LaLota, we really worked together. This was a bipartisan effort to help small businesses, streamline the regulations, make it easier, simpler, plain language, so that an average small business owner, a mama papa shop, can get to the website, get things done, apply for the incentives that they get, and they know what is available, what's not.
China currently owns more than 370,000 acres of U.S. farmland, some near sensitive military installations. At the same time, Ukraine's use of drones has reshaped modern warfare. How concerned should Americans be about potential vulnerabilities here at home? And as a senior member of the Homeland Security Committee as yourself, what actions are being taken to shore up these risks, especially where foreign land ownership is involved right here on American soil?
It should be of a substantial concern. We need to protect our homeland. We need to protect from attacks, terrorism attacks. China is a threat. They are in direct competition with us. And we have already seen a number of instances where Chinese government-connected organizations have, attempted to take our intellectual data from universities. So we must watch the Chinese actions very carefully. We have seen many researchers at major universities transferring protected data, scientific data, to the Chinese government. And this is of grave concern. The Chinese have not always played with good practices, ethical practices, and it is important that for the sake of our security, for the sake of protecting our borders, for the sake of protecting our intellectual data, we must watch very carefully foreign-owned land in America, what activities are happening on this land, and certainly with the drone attacks that happened in Ukraine, it is of grave concern because some of these facilities are very close to our military operations. Some of these foreign-owned land are closer to our chemical plants, nuclear facilities. So all of these are has certain amount of danger. We have already seen Chinese aggression at our ports. We've seen Chinese aggression at cyber security attacks on our installations. So this must be taken very seriously. There should be a proper monitoring of these foreign-owned lands in the United States, and any activity that happens on these lands that could be a danger to our homeland must be controlled, must be watched, and action must be taken to protect our homeland.
Congressman, I do want to get your thoughts on the reconciliation bill that did pass the House of Representatives, now being debated in the Senate. How do you expect this legislation to evolve in the upper chamber? And as it stands right now, what would the practical impact be on your constituents back in Michigan?
Well, look, I voted no on this, what Mr. Trump calls the big, beautiful bill. It's really probably one of the ugliest bill that I ended up voting no on. This bill, cuts down Medicaid. Nearly more than 20% of my constituents use Medicaid for life-saving treatment. And there is a huge concern among my constituents. The uncertainty will, someone just recently told me her son is on life-saving medication. Will that treatment continue? There's a lot of concern. Lives will be lost if this becomes a law and millions and millions of people are thrown out of health care coverage. Same thing goes with food assistance, substantial part. My district, 13th district in Michigan, is one of the poorest districts in America. Nearly 25% of my constituents are at or below level of poverty. Having grown up in poverty myself, I understand the struggles of putting food on the table and cutting down on the nutritional program, which is really only $6 per person per day. And the Republicans are trying to cut food assistance, taking literally food away from the mouths of hungry children, hungry constituents. So I strongly oppose this bill. Not only this bill uses this money that they're trying to save from social programs to give tax breaks to the rich and to the corporations, but it also raises our deficit to the tune of over $2 trillion.
Congressman Shri Thandadar, appreciate your perspective. Thank you.
Thank you.
Coming up, toxins around us might be making it harder to lose weight, but targeted detoxes could actually help. An expert in obesity medicine gives us insight on how it all works.
Food. It fuels our bodies, nourishes our spirits, and brings us together. Because we all need nutritious food to thrive.
Food gives me energy and it also helps me focus.
But not everyone knows where their next meal is coming from. And 1 in 7 people in America face hunger. It's tougher than ever for too many of us. But the simple truth is, ending hunger is possible, and it starts with you. Call or go online to helpfeedingamerica.org and give $19 a month, just 63 cents a day, to help families in your community facing hunger. Feeding America works from coast to coast with partner food banks, food pantries, and meal programs. Your monthly gift delivers food where it's needed most, puts fresh food on the table, and helps kids have healthy meals all year round, even when school is out.
You can see the difference with the kids when they're full. Food is everything.
Please call the number on your screen or go online to helpfeedingamerica.org. Give $19 a month. Your first gift can double an impact. And we'll send you this free canvas grocery bag as a reminder of how you're helping to end hunger for good.
When it comes down to it, it's about taking care of your family first and the loved ones that you need to provide for.
Food donations help me tremendously, and I'm very grateful for the food bank.
I have hope. The simple truth is, ending hunger in America is possible. You can help make it happen. The need is urgent. Call or go online now to helpfeedingamerica.org, and your gift can double in impact.
Welcome back. I'm joined in studio by NTD health correspondent and host of Epoch TV's Vital Signs, Brendan Fallon. Vital Signs zooms in on important aspects of health that influence our lives. So Brandon, it's always nice to see you. Always look forward to your health tips. So what do you have for us today?
Well, Don, obviously obesity is a major problem for many people out there. I think you and I probably struggle with the opposite problem, trying to put on weight. That's something I've struggled with for most of my life. But people, they can try all sorts of things. They diet, exercise, and they just still don't lose weight. So it begs the question, what might be going on inside the body that is preventing weight loss from happening? I spoke to an obesity medicine doctor, Dr. Krishna Dhanapathy, and he's really focused on the natural methods to help people lose weight. And hormones come heavily into this. When I started talking about this to him, I was surprised when the topic turned to not necessarily hormones inside the body, but also the hormones outside the body. And this is what he talks about first here.
We were just talking a little bit about hormones. I was only even just talking about endogenous hormones. What does the human body make? I mean, it still begs the question, what are the exogenous or environmental hormones that are found, whether it's from our air, water, or food? Those are just as important. They're kind of like what you may have heard of as the forever hormones. Some of those can have very obesogenic influence on the human body and human cells as well.
Can you give an example of one of those that would possibly impact someone's inability to lose weight?
Yeah, bisphenol A is one of them. BPA has been around for quite some time. It has a weak estrogenic effect, but it also has an obesogenic effect. And looking back and thinking about how babies are born and what are they fed, our culture has moved somewhat away from breastfeeding to bottle feeding. And it was not too long ago that BPA was found in every one of the milk bottles. In the past, several decades ago, we never used plastics as much as we do now. And instead, babies, if they were fed with glass bottles. And I still encourage that if it's absolutely necessary for supplemental feeding, is to use glass. But BPA is the biggest one. And now, if you go to the stores and you'll see everything is, they want to tout BPA free. Well, darn it, many generations have already been exposed to bisphenol A. And it's now substituted with bisphenol S. And it's not any better. In fact, it's worse.
Wow. I mean, plastic is everywhere. I mean, it's really difficult to avoid these days. Maybe I should try using glass, but what are your thoughts on that?
Yeah, as you say, Don, it's all around us, and it's hard to know. Like Dr. Dhanapathy says, they're not using BPA anymore, but they're using a substitute for that he says is potentially worse. So I guess glass is one safer alternative, and I mean, if the scope for hormones to affect us, we see the obvious example is puberty, how much our bodies change through the influence of hormones. So you can imagine the scope that these things in our environment have to influence our bodies.
Okay, and I do believe you have another clip for us. What do we should expect over there?
Here, Dr. Dhanapathy is giving an example of a woman he helped. It's using hormone adjustment.
Okay.
I had a lady not that long ago. She had been struggling with weight loss since a teen. And she was, like many people nowadays, they find so much information on the internet. And she was listening to people like yourself who knows a little bit about nutrition. And she changed her diet to something that was low carb, good clean food, organic, non-GMO, but still wasn't able to lose weight. And so sensing that, and I looked at her nutritional plan, it's very good. And so I told her, I said, you're eating right. So let me help you detoxify a little bit. And what I was trying to detoxify her from were environmental hormones. And by doing that, by cleaning up her gut system and her liver, she began to start to lose weight. I would like to just remind all your listeners that the way that we lose weight, whether it's because of nutrition or removing bad hormones or so on, ultimately at the end of the day, body fat is a storage of triglycerides. Those triglycerides and fatty acids go to the liver, and the liver will package them up with bile and transport them into the gut, and out the door they go into the toilet. So the liver plays a huge role. The problem is that if it's heavily burdened with toxins and the ability to detoxify is compromised, even the best nutritional plan will hit a wall. And that was the case with this lady. And so, again, by helping her detoxify through the liver better, she was able to start losing weight again.
You know, that's pretty interesting. What does that involve, detoxing, exactly?
I'd encourage viewers to check out this full episode, because this is something that Dr. Danaparthy goes into with that lady's specific example. Exactly the kinds of nutrients and things like that he applied. In general, though, Don, I think from not just speaking to Dr. Danaparthy, but different doctors, diet is such a huge factor in allowing the body to getting the right food in, the right nutrients that aren't going to cause harm to the internal organs like the liver. Intermittent fasting is another big one. Just giving your body that break where it can start to eliminate these toxins. Getting good sleep is another one. It's a major time when the body is ridding itself of this toxic buildup.
Right. So important and very fascinating as well. Thank you very much. And to see that full interview on vital signs, go to epochtimes.com or ept.ms/obesity detox. And coming up, summer jobs can help teens lay the groundwork for a strong financial future. But how can parents teach smart money habits? An expert breaks it down after the break.
Hi, I'm Ty Pennington, here for Choice Home Warranty. They protect my home from expensive repairs, and they can do the same for you. No matter if it's your refrigerator, plumbing, or more than 20 other home systems and appliances, Choice Home Warranty has saved millions of homeowners a whole lot of money. For a low monthly fee, you get their nationwide network of trusted local technicians with plans that cover repairs and replacements done quickly and the right way. No more headaches searching for technicians. No more budget-breaking chaos. Just a peace of mind of having Choice Home Warranty at your service. Call Choice Home Warranty now and save big with their special offer of your first month free and free limited roof coverage. Call now.
Call Choice Home Warranty for your free personalized quote and to get your first month free. Call in the next 5 minutes, and as our special offer, you'll receive free limited roof coverage. Call now to lock in your rate and save big. Call 800-210-6422. 800-210-6422.
What if you could whiten your teeth by simply brushing your teeth? Now you can with Smile Actives, the teeth whitening breakthrough that safely gets your teeth white and keeps them white every day, just by brushing your teeth.
I never thought that whitening my teeth could be so easy. I just put the gel on the brush, the toothpaste on it, brush, and I can see my white teeth.
Simply add Smile Actives to any toothpaste, and our patented PolyClean technology activates into a powerful microfoam that penetrates into the enamel surface to safely lift and remove stains.
You need a simple way to whiten your teeth. Without strips, without trays, without going to the dentist. And it was about time that a product was developed that you would be able to do that with just brushing.
And now, Smile Actives is even better with new Pro Whitening Gel with 33% greater whitening power, clinically shown to whiten teeth faster, up to 8 shades. 100% of users saw whiter teeth. On food stains, coffee and wine stains, even on veneers, crowns, and dentures.
I eat the blueberries, I drink the coffee, and I know that Smile Actives will keep my teeth white every day.
If you could use something so easy like Smile Actives to take yellow teeth to white teeth, why wouldn't you?
Why spend hundreds of dollars for whitening treatments at the dentist when now you can whiten your teeth with new Smile Actives Pro Whitening Gel every time you brush your teeth? Call or go to smileactives.com and for a limited time get new Pro Whitening Gel for just $24.95. Order in the next 5 minutes and buy one, get one absolutely free for just $24.95. That's 2 for 1 and save 58%. We'll even include free shipping. Get your teeth whiter guaranteed or return it within 60 days for your money back.
I smile every day now.
The difference is literally night and day.
So now I'm always smiling, always choosing, because now my teeth are much whiter.
This offer is not available in stores, so call or click now before the special buy one, get one free offer goes away.
That summer job scooping ice cream or lifeguarding might seem small, but it can actually lead to big financial growth down the road. With a bit of guidance, a teen's paycheck can kickstart decades of compound interest and set the stage for smart money habits for life. NTD Stefania Cox spoke with Lawrence Sprung, founder of Minton Financial, for insight.
Okay, let's lay the groundwork here. Where is it wise to start on this?
So, as soon as your children are eligible to get working papers, where I'm located in New York, it's the age of 14, as long as they're getting a paycheck, W-2 wages. So if they're doing that babysitting job off the books per se, it doesn't work for that. But as long as they're getting a paycheck and they're going to have W-2 wages, they can start saving for their retirement now.
Incredible. Well, it's a pretty hopeful outlook when you think of the compound growth that's possible. But in their first jobs, teens are often not just learning to work, but hopefully learning smart money habits, leading to that compound growth. So how can parents help their kids with that?
Yeah, so I'll share a personal story of what we did in my family when my oldest turned 14. We offered him to get work during the summer, and if he did, we would support him, which we were going to do anyway. And if he took his paycheck and put it into a Roth IRA, which basically you put that money in, it grows tax deferred, and it will come out tax free later on in retirement. Whatever he put into that account, we would match and give him spending money. So we started encouraging that habit at a very early age, and now he's 8 years older, looking at that account. He's been following it over all these years. So he's gotten acclimated. And now as he's entering the workforce, he is asking about companies if they have a 401k and how he can continue saving towards his retirement.
That's great. Sometimes parents might be prompted to say, oh, you're young, just make the most of it, and feel that their children do know how to save if they want to. So what are the tangible benefits beyond practicing habits later in life?
Yeah, I mean, children only know and young adults only know what they see and what they hear and what they learn. And, quite frankly, they're learning a lot of things online and through social media outlets. And a lot of that stuff is not necessarily accurate. So you have to make sure that you're armed with the accurate information of what this could and how this can impact them. Because at the end of the day, the generation that are turning 14, 15, that are starting these summer jobs, in many cases, their retirement is solely on their shoulders. So if they could start the path of saving towards retirement today, then they should do that. And we should be able to be in a position to help educate them on how to do that. I'll also share when my son got his first job while he was in college, he was telling somebody how he's had a Roth IRA since he was 14 years old. And an adult said to him, oh, you can't have a Roth IRA until you turn 18. He goes, no, you can. As long as you have earned income, you can start saving for retirement. So even adults and a lot of folks don't even know that this exists. And if we can educate our young folk about its existence and get them started on the right path, it could be hugely impactful to them.
Now, as life goes by, whether you're looking to get married, have children, or retire, budgeting is also a necessary skill. So how can children learn more about that with their summer jobs?
Yeah, so starting early again, I mean, when my kids were young, they had a piggy bank that had, instead of the traditional one slot, it had several slots. It had a slot for spending, a slot for saving, and a slot for investing. And that opened up a conversation about what each of those means and how when you earn money, whether it's through chores or other means, how you can allocate that differently and how you should think about money. And how that conversation should change as the kids get older to preteens, then teens, then eventually college. Because if you can instill this sense of what budgeting is, how to budget it, and that it's not all about spending all your money today or saving all your money today, that there's a happy medium in between, and adding investing to it, it can have a huge impact on them as adults and their future using these budgeting tools.
Now, how do you suggest families foster that sense of financial literacy and security within their family culture? You've talked about these beautiful practices that you've got. Anything more about mindset or other practices?
Yeah, I mean, have conversations about it. It's really important to just talk about money. I know in some families it's somewhat taboo, but if your youngster is working and they're getting a paycheck, sit down with them when they get the paycheck. Sit down with them and review the pay stub and talk to them and show them the difference between gross income, what they get paid, and what their net income is after taxes, and how they plan on utilizing that money, and talk about those areas of spending, saving, and investing, and just have those conversations. And if they're not working and doing that, then maybe take a look at either starting them on some kind of allowance program where they get some kind of income and have to manage it, or maybe even take out your own paycheck if you feel comfortable enough, and maybe just write over the amount that you're getting paid and just adjust it. But use it as a tool to have a conversation to get them in these habits as early as possible, because it will serve them well in life.
And getting many people started today. Thank you so much for your advice. Lawrence Sprung, good to speak with you as always.
Thank you.
This weekend, Brooklyn's Brighton Beach station has transformed into a living museum as the New York Transit Museum's parade of trains rolls through. With just a swipe of a Metro card or a tap of your Omni, New Yorkers and visitors alike are hopping aboard vintage subway cars for a rare ride through the city's transit history. If you're up for a last-minute adventure, there's still time to catch these iconic trains running between Brighton Beach and Kings Highway Station until 4 p.m. today. NTD's Stefania Cox was there.
Step aboard and experience New York City as riders did more than a century ago. With the annual parade of trains, visitors hop on and off vintage subway cars at Brighton Beach and Kings Highway stations, turning a summer weekend into a living history lesson. For many, this event is a highlight of the year, a chance to see, hear, and feel the development of the subway firsthand. Riders marveled at the details, rattan seats, leather straps, and the absence of modern comforts. Each car tells a story, from the faded advertisements of decades past to the clang of the conductor's bell. This year's parade of trains featured some of the most iconic cars in New York's transit history. The 1904 BU Gate cars, the oldest in the fleet, offering an open-air ride that recalls the subway's earliest days. BMT Standards, pioneers of Brooklyn's subway service from the 1910s to 1920s. And R19s, the classic 1930s cars, now famous as the holiday nostalgia train, beloved by generations for their timeless charm.
People love remembering the cars that they were on, or the cars that their family members were on. With the Brooklyn Union elevated cars, those were the trains my grandmother rode back and forth to the Navy Yard. So I've got a family connection to them. A lot of the other cars people rode, and they're showing them off to their kids and grandkids.
How do you feel about the train ride today?
Like, very great, actually.
What do you like about it?
That it's old. And it has, like, so much, like, paintings around it. That makes it, like, enjoyable.
What's your favorite part?
The old train.
I don't know.
Just everything?
Yeah, the home.
We have a lot of variety. I call the New York City subway the Haagen-Dazs of subway cars, because you have variety and you look at the different body styles and types. So you're seeing generations of subway cars.
The old trains, the old mechanics are so cool. Just so interesting to think about what New York life might have been back at that time.
I really love being on this train from 1914. I love just the feel.
We love the trains. We've been loving trains.
We're gonna miss all the trains.
We're gonna miss
and the 62,
the R46, R32. Like it feels nice coming to this event because it's like it feels nice coming to this event because this is my first time, and like
you know, the R32s, the R46s. Like, I grew up with them mostly on the ANC. I remember, like, when I was little, my mom would take me to school, and we would always get an R32, and, like, the train would just go flying, like, on the way to school. It was a really fun ride, and, like, I'm really gonna miss these cars. So, like,
The Parade of Trains is just one part of the Transit Museum's year-round Nostalgia Ride series, which has been delighting train lovers and history buffs since the 1970s. If you missed this year's Parade of Trains, there's still plenty to explore. Visit the Transit Museum in downtown Brooklyn, or join an upcoming Nostalgia Ride to keep the journey going. Reporting from Brooklyn, Stephanie Cox, NTD News.
Coming up, millions of men face depression, anxiety, and loneliness, yet many suffer in silence. A psychiatrist shares tips on how to support the men in your life. Stay with us, we're bringing more after the break.
Discover the ancient secret to vitality and longevity with Puretang Black Ginseng. Crafted from premium 6-year-old Korean ginseng, each root is carefully nurtured for over 2,260 days, undergoing a traditional 9-round handcrafted process of steaming and drying to unlock full potency and absorption. Experience pure natural energy with Puretang Black Ginseng. Order now at puretang.com.
I'm Amy Grant, and I want to talk to you from my heart about the heart. I would have been the last person on the list to say this woman has a problem with her heart. So no, there was nothing about my life that said, you have a ticking time bomb in your chest. But I did. I wound up in the office of a cardiologist because I was there with my husband. And at the tail end of that, the cardiologist looked at me and said, I want to see you. No one was more surprised than I was to learn I was living with a rare heart condition. He said, Amy, this condition, you'll be fine, and then catastrophic. A few months later, I had open heart surgery that saved my life. And I owe it to the research and life-saving medical breakthroughs developed by the American Heart Association. That's why I'm asking you to join me and become a monthly donor to the American Heart Association. Please call now or go to helpheart.org. For only $19 a month, just 63 cents a day, you can help fund the next medical breakthrough, get the next person trained in CPR, and get the next hospital certified in high-quality cardiovascular care. If this could happen to me, it could happen to anybody. Heart disease is America's #1 killer, but your support can save your life or the life of someone you love. Give $19 a month with your credit card and we'll send you this special t-shirt you can wear to show you're part of a community of monthly donors working to help save more lives like mine. I'm grateful for the American Heart Association. Their research gave me more time to do the things I love with the people I love. So listen to your heart. I'm here today because I did.
Please call or go online to helpheart.org. Become a monthly donor, and for a limited time only, your first month's gift will be matched.
Thank you.
Hear that? That's the sound of your life. Perfectly imperfect. But every time you drive after drinking, the music gets drowned out. Your life sounds pretty great. Don't let a buzz ruin it. Buzzed driving is drunk driving. Don't drive buzzed.
Welcome to NTD News Today. Here are today's top stories. 2 protests took place in New York City Saturday after ICE raids, including one sparked by an 11th grader being detained during an asylum hearing. Protests in Los Angeles stretched from Friday into the weekend. That comes as police and protesters clashed outside a federal detention center following dozens of immigration raids across the city. The Trump administration has responded by deploying 2,000 National Guard troops to the area. Previously deported Kilmar Abrego Garcia is back in the U.S. This time, he's facing multiple criminal charges, Arian Pazdar reports on the case and how officials are responding. Millions of men face depression, anxiety, and loneliness. Yet many suffer in silence. A psychiatrist shares his tips on how to support the men in your life. An exclusive look at the US-China trade dispute 36 years after the 1989 Tiananmen Square massacre. How did the bloody clampdown shape today's global economy, and what does it signal for the future of US-China relations?
This is NTD News Today, live from our global headquarters in New York City.
Good afternoon, thanks for joining us. The Los Angeles protests weren't the only ICE-related incidents yesterday. At least 2 separate incidents tied to ICE raids took place in New York City on Saturday. More than 20 people were arrested after over 100 protesters tried to block federal authorities from conducting raids in Lower Manhattan. Angry demonstrators yelled obscenities at police officers. Objects were thrown at an unmarked white van as it exited 26 Federal Plaza, and protesters attempted to sit in front of the path to block it. Another protest occurred after an 11th grader was detained when he showed up at an asylum court hearing. Mayor Eric Adams' office released the following statement about the ICE arrests. Quote, "We are aware of and concerned about an incident involving a public school student who was reported to be detained after attending an immigration court hearing, and we are gathering information. Our city is less safe when people are afraid to use public resources, including going to their court hearings, and does feel forced to hide in the shadows." The Trump administration said it's sending 2,000 National Guard troops as officers clashed with about 100 protesters in the Paramount area of southeast Los Angeles. Some people were waving Mexican flags while others had respiratory masks covering their faces.
Large flames and thick smoke were coming from a burning car on Saturday. It happened as federal agents and protesters faced off for a second day after immigration raids. Fireworks exploded outside the Metropolitan Detention Center, and law enforcement personnel fired less lethal rounds at protesters. That comes as the city entered a second straight night of demonstrators against immigration raids. This all started after Immigration and Customs Enforcement officers carried out search warrants at several locations on Friday. Early in the face-off, some protesters hurled chunks of broken concrete toward officers. Police in riot gear then deployed tear gas and flashbangs to disperse the crowd. Police issued a citywide tactical alert just hours after declaring the protests unlawful assemblies. The DHS said in a statement that recent ICE operations in Los Angeles resulted in the arrest of 118 immigrants. That included 5 people linked to criminal organizations and people with prior criminal histories.
An illegal immigrant from El Salvador is back in the U.S. after having been deported to his home country. Kilmar Abrego Garcia is facing charges in the U.S. for allegedly smuggling illegal immigrants. Let's now bring in our international correspondent, Arian Pazdar, who's in Latin America. Arian, what's the latest on this case, and what are the exact charges, and what are officials saying?
Hey Don, thanks for having me. Happy Sunday. So first of all, just as a reminder for our viewers, the case of Kilmar Abrego Garcia made nationwide headlines after he was deported to a mega prison in El Salvador. Some lawmakers actually went to El Salvador to first visit Garcia, or try to visit Garcia, and then also advocating for his return to the US. Now that's mostly because a judge in 2019 had ordered that Garcia shouldn't be deported because of gang ties he might have in El Salvador. But now, just on Friday, the Department of Justice, or DOJ, gave new details about this case. Attorney General Pam Bondi says that Garcia was part of a human smuggling operation in the US for 9 years. He allegedly took illegal immigrants from the border and then transported them further inland. And according to Bondi, some of those operations were especially bad. Let's take a look at what she said on Friday.
the grand jury found smuggling people throughout our country. MS-13 members, violent gang terrorist organization members throughout our country. This is especially disturbing because Abrego Garcia is also alleged with transporting minor children. The defendant traded the innocence of minor children for profit.
Now, I just want to add real quick, Don, that the attorney for Garcia, he denies all of those claims, calling the case baseless. The attorney says that the government, the DOJ, doesn't actually have proof for the accusations that it is making. So according to the attorney, all of those accusations are based on statements made by people who are either in prison or who are facing prosecution right now. So he's suggesting that those individuals are basically lying to the federal government to strike a better deal. Don?
Right, Arian. I mean, I think it's safe to say that Garcia's return to the U.S. pretty controversial. And after the deportation, judges had ordered him to be brought back, but the Trump administration was against that. What is President Trump saying now that Garcia is in fact back in the U.S.?
Right, so this case really did make waves for weeks, actually. And in the end, President Trump's own Justice Department actually asked El Salvador to bring Garcia back. And on Friday, Trump said he welcomes that decision because this way Garcia can face the consequences for the crimes he allegedly committed in the US. But now there's a different side to this story as well, which is Trump is criticizing the fact that throughout this case, which has been spanning over weeks now, throughout this case, local judges have been ordering the federal government to return Garcia to the US. And a district judge in Massachusetts actually played a key role in this. So according to Trump, those local judges are trying to do the job that's actually meant for the president to do. Let's take a look at what Trump said about that on Friday.
Look, all of these people, these judges that want to try and run the country. The judges are a local judge trying to run the country. And frankly, we have to do something because the judges are trying to take the place of a president that won in a landslide. And that's not supposed to be the way it is.
Now, regarding what's next in this case, Garcia will have his court hearings on Friday the 13th, actually. And the DOJ already said that after the completion of his sentence, Garcia will be deported again. Don?
Okay, Arian, thank you very much. Coming up, President Trump bans travel from a dozen countries, including Yemen, citing national security concerns. We take a look at the impact. That and more after the break.
What if kids in America didn't have to go to bed hungry tonight? What if our moms, dads, and grandparents could put healthy food on the table every day to help us grow strong? What if all of our friends and neighbors had fresh food too, and there was no hunger at all in America? And what if there was a way today for you to help? Call now or go online to helpfeedingamerica.org and give $19 a month, just 63 cents a day. So many of us don't have enough food to eat, but your monthly gift means families across the country and in your community can fill plates with food. Kids can get healthy meals year-round, even when school's out, and our neighbors can have fresh food. Food that moms, dads, entire families need to thrive. But right now, more people are facing hunger. Feeding America works from coast to coast with partner food banks, food pantries, and meal programs. It takes all of us to make that happen. Will you help too? Please call the number on your screen or go online to helpfeedingamerica.org and give just $19 a month, and we'll send you this free canvas grocery bag. It's our way of saying thank you for helping to end hunger for our neighbors. Because no kid, no mom or dad, nobody should go hungry in America. Nobody. So what if today was the day you could help nourish futures for our friends, our families, for all of us? Ending hunger is possible. What if we end it together?
Call or give online today at helpfeedingamerica.org and your gift can be doubled.
Thank you.
I debate all day. It's what I do. But there are some things that are undebatable, like your mental health, my own mental health. I was in a dark place when my brother passed away in a car accident. I've never been more devastated than the day I lost my mom. I was depressed, miserable, in ways I never imagined. I reached out, and my sisters came, my pastor, my therapist. They helped me get through it. I found that the more I spoke up, the healthier my mind became. The chaos that was in me began to subside. I was more focused, clear. When you love your mind, you can go so much further. That's not up for debate. Find mental health resources at loveyourmindtoday.org.
President Trump signed a proclamation banning travel from 12 countries to the U.S. this week, citing security risks. The list includes Afghanistan, Haiti, and Yemen, and 7 countries have partial restrictions like Venezuela and Cuba. Supporters say the rule will help ensure safety, but critics argue it won't. NTD's Kevin Hogan taps Simon Hankinson for insight. He's the Senior Research Fellow of the Heritage Foundation's Border Security and Immigration Center.
Simon, as we reported, President Trump this week signed a proclamation banning travel from 12 countries to the U.S., citing security risks. The list, as we mentioned, includes Afghanistan, even Haiti and Yemen, and 7 countries have those partial restrictions like the socialist states, Venezuela and Cuba. Supporters say this will help ensure safety. Critics say it won't. How are you viewing this move?
Well, I guess that's kind of predictable that it would break down that way. The reasons given for this were that some of these countries don't take back their criminal aliens after they have been after they've served their time in the U.S., but they're not supposed to be here. Every country is supposed to take back its citizens. We take back 100% of our citizens, but many countries refuse to do so, or they make it very difficult. Another reason cited was that some countries simply don't have effective governments and document production and verification, so that it's very difficult for us to trust their passports and their civil documents and to know who people are, and then if we need to investigate their backgrounds, their criminal backgrounds, terrorist connections, etc. Some of these countries have active terrorist groups. They have incredibly high crime rates as well, and you really need accurate records to be able to vet people. And some countries have very high rates of overstay. When people apply for visas promising they're going to come for 2 weeks to go to Disneyland or New York City, they come and they immediately get a job, or they claim asylum, or they break whatever promise that they made. And when you have a high overstay rate, it seems logical to reduce issuing visas in that country. So I think a combination of all of these factors were behind the particular list in question.
I hear what you're saying, Simon. And some of the people who might pose threats to the U.S. could come legally using visas, but others might still use illegal ways to enter the country between ports of entry. In your view, what would it take to fully secure the country? Are travel bans enough, or does the visa process need to change fundamentally?
Well, I do think we need better vetting of visas. I did that for my whole career. I was working in consular work for at least half of it anyway. And vetting it's a moving target. Before 9/11, we just had paper forms and we had a database of names, but we didn't share information between all the different agencies. And we found out on 9/11 that was a potential disaster. So vetting has gotten better over the years. We're adding, I think, social media accounts and other ways that we can verify people's backgrounds and make sure that they don't plan to come to the United States with nefarious intent. As far as the border goes, we'll never have 100% secure border. Well, I shouldn't say never, but not until technology improves significantly will we be able to secure the entire U.S. Northern and southern border, which is, a combined 7,000 miles or something, not counting the coasts. But we've already seen the difference between the Biden and Trump administrations in terms of a 90% decline in illegal crossings. And so it's a lot harder to get in illegally now, but not impossible.
Understood. And can you please comment on the decision not to include Egypt in the list?
Well, if you're weighing up all the factors that I mentioned, visa overstays, the strength of the government and civil documents, terrorist threats, criminal threats, and their willingness to take their people back, you have to add a fifth factor, which is larger strategic considerations. Some countries, just to be blunt, weigh more in U.S. foreign policy than others. Egypt is a big player in the Middle East. It's a huge country, over 100 million people, a big economy for the region, and we have reason to want to keep Egypt on our side for all kinds of issues that we're working with them on. You look at Afghanistan, for example, not so much. It's not as important to us, leaving aside the whole history of the war in sort of geopolitical terms. So we have to weigh up visas in our relations with countries like India and China, along with very many other things, and it's never a simple formula.
Thank you for that insight. And President Trump signed a proclamation which doesn't have the same power as an executive order because it's not legally binding. What's the impact Trump's move will have in practice on the ground?
Well, when you say it's not legally binding, the executive branch, the president, controls all of the federal agencies and gives them their marching orders. So if the president declares, I believe it's under Section 222F of the Immigration and Nationality Act, but if he declares that a certain group of people should not be admitted to the United States because it's detrimental to our national security, then that will not happen. The consular officers overseas and the ambassadors overseas take their instructions from the president. So it does have the force of law behind it, because that is a power that in the Constitution belongs to the president.
Understood. So, Simon, certain nationals from the listed countries can still enter the U.S. This includes, for example, athletes who come for the World Cup, as well as people who have immediate family immigrant visas with a convincing case, Afghan special immigrant visas, and others. What do you think about those exceptions?
Even when we had the COVID 100% shutdown, we had exceptions. We started to see exceptions widen. In the last administration, when there were travel bans on certain countries, there were always exceptions. Generally speaking, American citizens and their immediate relatives tend to get those exceptions first, or medical emergencies. I can see the Olympics. I can see the reason for that, just in terms of the economic value and the fact that Olympic athletes, for the most part, are probably a safer bet than some other categories of people. So I've almost never seen a visa restriction that didn't contain some discretion on the part of the Secretary of State, Secretary of Homeland Security, or consular officers to let some people in for certain reasons.
Thanks.
Coming up, millions of men face depression, anxiety, and loneliness, yet many suffer in silence. A psychiatrist shares tips on how to support the men in your life. Stay with us, we're going to bring you more after this break.
Food. It fuels our bodies, nourishes our spirits, and brings us together. Because we all need nutritious food to thrive.
Food gives me energy and it also helps me focus.
But not everyone knows where their next meal is coming from. And 1 in 7 people in America face hunger. It's tougher than ever for too many of us. But the simple truth is, ending hunger is possible, and it starts with you. Call or go online to helpfeedingamerica.org and give $19 a month, just 63 cents a day, to help families in your community facing hunger. Feeding America works from coast to coast with partner food banks, food pantries, and meal programs. Your monthly gift delivers food where it's needed most, puts fresh food on the table, and helps kids have healthy meals all year round, even when school is out.
You can see the difference with the kids when they're full. Food is everything.
Please call the number on your screen or go online to helpfeedingamerica.org. Give $19 a month. Your first gift can double an impact. And we'll send you this free canvas grocery bag as a reminder of how you're helping to end hunger for good.
When it comes down to it, it's about taking care of your family first and the loved ones that you need to provide for.
Food donations help me tremendously, and I'm very grateful for the food bank.
I have hope
The simple truth is, ending hunger in America is possible. You can help make it happen. The need is urgent. Call or go online now to helpfeedingamerica.org, and your gift can double in impact.
My dad was a farmer, and when I saw him on a horse, the guy was bigger than life. One of the things that he had a hard time doing was showing the emotion. Maybe it was because the way he was raised, or believing that men provide and they don't struggle. But we all struggle. I want to show emotion to my kids. I want them to know when I'm happy. I want them to know when I'm sad. And I want them to see me working through things. The biggest reward I get from being a dad is watching my kids accomplish a goal, watching them light up. Nothing brings a bigger smile to my face. So I make my kids a priority. Whether it's hitting a baseball, a dance rehearsal, you name it, I'm there. They're gonna remember that they grew up loved. Be brave. Be there every day. And allow your kids to know that it's okay to struggle. That even dad doesn't know the answer sometimes, but we're gonna figure it out together.
Men die by suicide nearly 4 times more often than women. So what are some of the warning signs and how can we spot them sooner in men? NTD's Stefania Cox spoke with Dr. Menna Murholm, board-certified psychiatrist, for insight.
Now, only 1 in 4 men with a mental health issue actually seeks professional help. Why is there such a gap, and what's keeping men from reaching out?
Yeah, good to see you as well, Steph, and thank you for highlighting this key issue. And one of the reasons here is that men are oftentimes conditioned to man up instead of speak up. There is this perception that what's more manly is to sort of take in the pain. This is sort of like when a man is driving and he sees a warning sign in his car of a check engine light without ever checking under the hood. You know, you can't heal what you don't inspect, or you can't heal what you don't reveal. So oftentimes for men, there is this perception that if I said something, there's a sign of weakness. If I show vulnerability, this will be held against me, whether at work or at home and other places. And what that results is that women are actually doing a much better job at this, and men really need to ought to learn from them. 40% more likely to seek help women are versus men. So this is some part of the narrative that we need to change around Men's Mental Health Month.
And I do want to get more into the cultural issues as well as some of the solutions and approaches that could help really ameliorate this. But we spoke earlier in the intro just saying how harsh this can be for men. It can even lead to death by suicide, for example. And men are more likely by 4 times than women to commit suicide. What are some of the warning signs that often go unnoticed in men?
Yeah, absolutely. This is part of the reason why it's so important to highlight this, because the picture that we sometimes think of suicide in men is mismatched with the reality, right? There was a study out of the VA that showed actually 70% of men who died by suicide in the veteran community really had no prior signs of that at all. And part of this is that what this looks like in men is oftentimes not sadness and being withdrawn and tears, if you will, but depression in men sometimes can look like anger or silence or risk-taking. These things are sort of culturally appropriate, so men lean into it even more. We expect men to appear angry. That's not surprising to us. It's uncomfortable, but not surprising. So men do more and more of that, and they sort of come closer and closer to the edge of suicide, and we often only see it when it's too late. Sometimes it's those things, or even humor, like in the case of Robin Williams and other sort of famous actors that we've lost by suicide. So because of that, we want to be able to look at these early warning signs of increasing risk-taking, irritability, difficulty coping, difficulty managing at work. These are things that we want to be able to see earlier, and those can point to warning signs in men, not just sadness and being withdrawn.
And I certainly plan to get to solutions later on, but you've got me on the edge of my seat. What's a way that friends and close allies of men who may be managing this kind of anger, what can they do? And also, what can men do themselves to help manage if they're in a hard place like that?
The first thing we can do, there was actually a brilliant study just published in The Lancet on antisocial personality disorders, which are far more common in men. We typically see when a man acts out or is irritable, we sometimes just label them as being a jerk. We sometimes just label them as being somebody that you don't want to be around. we want to take a step back as a society and as friends, as loved ones, as family, to say oftentimes the reason that somebody is acting out, it could be a place of pain, not just as a place of malice. So when we do that, it puts us in a place of curiosity. We ask more questions. Tell me more about what's been going on. How are things? Can you share with me? Things like that, putting us from a place of curiosity and understanding where a man is, from a friend, a partner, a loved one. And then on the healthcare end as well, we don't often do a great job of screening men, the same way that we're seeing now a lot of colon cancer, and we need to be able to screen better in younger people. Suicide is the same way. There are simple questions that we need to be asking, the PHQ-2 or PHQ-9. These are patient health questionnaires around depression that we as physicians and healthcare providers need to ask more regularly to make sure we get ahead of something before it becomes too late.
And in terms of factors that may exacerbate this progression into more isolation or more anger, nearly 80% of deaths related to alcohol and drugs are actually among men. Why are men more likely to turn to substances instead of to support?
Yeah, I was actually just speaking with a young man about this just yesterday in the emergency room, who came in with a long history of repeated substance use. It was alcohol use. And one part is that men don't often see that there is a way out of this. This is the pattern. They don't know, and this is part of why it's great to have this conversation, that there are medications that can actually help reduce alcohol cravings, that there are very effective therapies that don't often involve you leaving your work and having your whole life disrupted, but they can be alongside where you are and can be incredibly effective and life-saving. So one part is the narrative around, does treatment even work? Are there even options? Another part is what's socially acceptable. Again, men see this pattern on television and movies that you can always go to a bottle, you can always go to a substance, and that will numb the pain. This will be a Band-Aid that will make things better for the moment. But sometimes if we can help men see the hope beyond this, of saying there's treatment in that moment for alcohol use and there's pain beneath the substance use, that really can make a difference.
I wish we had much more time to discuss all of this. There's so much to it. But if you could send one message to men watching this segment, speaking about hope, perhaps to those men who are still suffering in silence, what would you tell them?
I would say it's one thing, which is that treatment really works. And part of what being an incredibly strong, resilient, self-aware man is to know when we need help. You could be the greatest athlete in the world. You still need a coach. You could be the greatest of any in your profession. Having colleagues, loved ones around you is not something that's a sign of weakness, but rather is a sign of strength. And the more we can put that at the forefront, that this is what it means for me to be strong. If I get a broken leg, I'm not going to try to walk it off. I'm going to make sure I can cast it so that I can move on to being able to be a provider and care for those around me. And treatment is incredibly effective if we just give it a try. So that's part of what it means to be a strong man today.
And just adding to that, we spoke about the people around men, having compassion for them and understanding where they're coming from. Some final thoughts from you as a message to those folks who are really thinking about how to think well about the men in their lives.
This is incredibly critical because the data is telling us that the loneliness and isolation is the new smoking, right? For men and women alike, isolation and loneliness can be like smoking 15 cigarettes a day. So if I have the opportunity around the man to change that narrative, I want to be able to come in there and find a way to support them in the way that resonates with them best. And one big way to do that is not necessarily by what I say, but what I ask. How do I receive information from them? How do I give them the space to express themselves in a way that makes the most sense? And oftentimes, honestly, it's just being present. Sometimes men burn their own bridges. Sometimes men destroy relationships in their lives. And if we're loved ones and supporting ones that can be around, one way that we can reshape that and be life-saving is finding ways to be present without judgment. Curious without condemning really can go a really long way.
Great message. Thank you so much for your time and your expertise today. Dr. Mina Marhome, good to speak with you as always.
Thank you, Steph. Likewise. Have a great day.
Coming up, an exclusive look at the U.S.-China trade dispute 36 years after the 1989 Tiananmen Square massacre. How did the bloody clampdown shape today's global economy? And what does it signal for the future of U.S.-China relations? Stay tuned for that and more after the break.
Hi, I'm Ty Pennington, here for Choice Home Warranty. They protect my home from expensive repairs, and they can do the same for you. No matter if it's your refrigerator, plumbing, or more than 20 other home systems and appliances, Choice Home Warranty has saved millions of homeowners a whole lot of money. For a low monthly fee, you get their nationwide network of trusted local technicians with plans that cover repairs and replacements done quickly and the right way. No more headaches searching for technicians. No more budget-breaking chaos. Just a peace of mind of having Choice Home Warranty at your service. Call Choice Home Warranty now and save big with their special offer of your first month free and free limited roof coverage. Call now.
Call Choice Home Warranty for your free personalized quote and to get your first month free. Call in the next 5 minutes, and as our special offer, you'll receive free limited roof coverage. Call now to lock in your rate and save big. Call 800-210-6422. 800-210-6422.
If joint pain from aging is slowing you down, Omega XL can help you get back in the saddle, just like it did for John Walsh.
Today I'm here at my ranch exercising some of my polo ponies. Got to be really fit to ride these horses. So as you get older, it gets tougher. I was starting to suffer some of that business, and then I ran into somebody who said, look, you should try Omega XL, and look what it's done. I feel better than I felt in the last 30 years.
I'm Reve Walsh. I'm John Walsh's wife. I ride fox hunters, and sometimes I'm in the saddle for 3-5 hours at a time. A lot of work out here.
I wouldn't have been able to do this. Muck a stall, throw hay, do all the things that needs to be done on a ranch a couple years ago. But Omega XL gave me the ability to get back in the saddle. It works great.
Once you try it, you don't want to be without it. Makes a huge difference.
It does. Take it every single day, and you know, there's a benefit. It's made you a lot nicer to me.
If you've been living with pain, it's time to get this special offer, the Omega XL, the joint health supplement that millions have trusted for more than 20 years. Omega XL, it's sourced from the green-lipped mussel, exclusively found in the pristine waters of New Zealand, some of the cleanest waters on Earth. Omega XL, it's natural, drug-free, and it's backed by more than 40 years of clinical research that show it really works. Try Omega XL today. Pick up your phone and call the number at the bottom of your screen right now for a special offer. Buy one, get two free. 2 bottles of Omega XL plus Vitamin XL D3, a value of more than $100. But call today and you pay only $39.95. That's a savings of more than 60%. Plus, it's backed by our 60-day money-back guarantee.
Try it. You got nothing to lose.
Call or go online right now to get this special offer. 2 bottles of Omega XL plus Vitamin XL D3 for only $39.95. Call now.
Can China change through a trade deal? That's the gamble on the table right now as the U.S. government negotiates with Beijing, and world markets are watching closely. Talks of China rebalancing, reforming, or even opening up its economy once again making headlines.
We opened up China. China agreed to open itself up to American business to go in.
These demands echo the calls made by Chinese students in 1989. They held mass protests calling for further reform and opening up in China, but their hopes were crushed, their lives lost under the Chinese Communist Party's brutal clampdown. So now the question is the Chinese regime ready to change this time?
As the army units approached the center of the city, they were firing into side streets, killing and injuring scores of incomprehending and unarmed men, women and children.
Troops have been firing indiscriminately, but still, there are thousands of people on the streets who will not move back.
The bicycle rickshaws scooped up the injured. Others were shunted onto bikes and pedaled to hospital.
The battle is underway, but it's being fought in the broad boulevards beyond Tiananmen Square, where civilians are confronting the troops advancing on this position and falling under heavy gunfire from the People's Army.
Casualties were arriving every few seconds. On bikes, rickshaws, park benches, carried in. In 20 minutes, 40 seriously injured were brought for emergency surgery. 2 were already dead.
The students were incredibly brave. They were fighting live ammunition with rocks and stones.
The crackdown is going to take many more hours, if not days, before it is complete, before we will know how many people have died.
How do you feel right now?
Feel right now? I'm very angry.
That was Western media reporting on the Tiananmen Square massacre, where countless perished on the night of June 3rd and into June 4th in 1989. Before we get to that, let's turn back the clock to understand why the Chinese students demonstrated and what the Chinese regime did to suppress this democratic movement. We begin with April 15th. That's the date of former CCP head Hu Yaobang died. Now, he was very well loved. He was known as a pro-reform leader. That's both economic and also some political reform. And because he was so well loved, on April 17th to 18th, you had tens of thousands of students who showed up organically in Tiananmen Square. That's at the heart of Beijing's capital. And they were there to mourn and pay respects for Hu's passing, but also to show their dissatisfaction against the regime because Hu represented to them anti-corruption and also political reform. So it begins to spread into almost a protest. And it grows. You have 35 universities in Beijing where students are protesting, and also other major universities across the country where people are joining in. So this movement is growing. By this point, you have, countless people across the country joining in. So on April 26th, you have an op-ed that's published in the People's Daily. That's a state-run newspaper, and it's calling the student movement as a form of political turmoil. Now that's important because during the Cultural Revolution, anyone deemed a threat to public security was thus said to need to be purged. And so that's when you're starting to see pressure on this student movement, this democratic movement that's happening inside China. Now, in response, you had 200,000 students come out and protest this editorial and the regime's narrative of what's happening. So as April becomes May, you have millions of people joining in. It's no longer just students. You have CCP officials themselves joining in, justice, judges, and also some soldiers that are joining in. So at this point, on May 13th, you have students in Tiananmen who are now doing a hunger strike to try and get the regime to talk to them and open up some dialogue. And you have some people supporting them where they're like, oh, we really support this movement. We're going to give them food and water to help them out. So this is putting a lot of social pressure on the regime. So on May 18th, you have then leader Li Peng meeting with the student leaders, but they're dissatisfied with what the regime is doing, so they refuse to leave. So on May 19th is when you had then CCP head Zhao Ziyang meeting because he was sympathetic with them, and then the regime declares martial law where troops are ordered into Beijing. Now, following Zhao's purge, he gets purged from the party, you had Deng Xiaoping, who was the head of the Chinese military. He becomes the most powerful person within the Chinese Communist Party. So he's now effectively calling the shots. Because he controls the military, he now orders the military, the tanks and the soldiers, to open fire on the night of June 3rd. So this is to fire on any students and also protesters who are on their way. And that marks the beginning of the massacre. Many were killed this night. It continues. The massacre continues through June 4th, where many more are killed. Even some Beijing residents who are inside their homes, they get hit or killed by stray bullets. Now, the true death toll to this day is still unknown. Some are saying it's in the hundreds. Some say even up to 10,000. We still don't know that true number. Now, as the massacre continues, on June 5th, the regime calls for a nationwide campaign to arrest the student leaders or demonstrators. And some of them were actually sentenced to the death penalty, all for calling for democracy. Others are still in jail to this very day, 36 years later. So that's what was launched on June 5th. These Chinese students fought for democracy and freedom. They believed that the Chinese regime would listen to them and bring about changes. But they were met with tanks and gunfire. 36 years later, half their demands shifted over time. Feng Zhen is a Chinese activist and lifelong athlete. On June 4th, 1989, Feng was among the students cruelly overrun by army tanks during the Tiananmen Square protests. After he pushed a young female student to safety, a tank crushed both his legs, leading to a double amputation. Feng currently serves as the president of the Chinese Democracy Education Foundation.
Looking back, 36 years have passed. Most of those demands haven't really changed much. Looking at the current situation in China, if a large-scale student movement were to happen again today, I believe the demands wouldn't be very different from what we had back then. This shows that the Chinese Communist Party's dictatorial and authoritarian model of rule hasn't changed in 36 years. So our basic demands for freedom, democracy, human rights, and rule of law are still what people in China long for today.
Within 6 months of the Tiananmen Square massacre in 1989, President George H.W. Bush secretly sent envoys to China twice to keep the door open with Beijing. He believed this approach would serve long-term U.S. economic interests. What he might not have realized, it also helped China get through the crisis without real consequences. Fast forward a few decades, China capitalized on globalization, joining the World Trade Organization, becoming the world's factory, and booming into the world's second largest economy. Western countries got more and more dependent on China for everything, from supply chains to consumer markets. That dependency turned into a big security concern during the COVID-19 pandemic, when China stockpiled crucial medical gear like masks and ventilators for itself. After that, many Western countries started trying to de-risk, meaning they wanted to rely less on China. Now, with President Trump back in the White House, he's hitting China with steep tariffs to counter unfair trade and pressure China to open up its markets. Right now, there's a temporary trade truce between the U.S. and China, but can they hammer out a lasting deal in the next 90 days? That remains an open question.
I think Western politicians are, of course, driven by their own interests. They tend to apply their own logic to interpret the CCP regime and its system, but that logic doesn't really work. Because China under the CCP isn't a normal society in the way the West defines it. It's not a standard society anymore after so many years of authoritarian rule. China's strategy toward the West is also deceptive. Hide my strength, bide my time. In order to secure deals, it simply lies. Whether those agreements will be honored later is another matter. The Communist Party has always operated this way without any ethical boundaries, nor does it feel any moral pressure. They don't care about keeping promises, and so what if they don't keep them? Nothing happens. So if the West continues to engage with the CCP using Western logic, it will always be at a disadvantage. It will lose.
Just now, Feng noted the regime's strategy called hide and abide, deceiving the West to achieve its own goals, adding that if the U.S. continues to engage the CCP using Western logic, it will lose. Here to help us understand American policy towards China over the years is longtime China expert, the Honorable Stephen Yates. He served as Deputy National Security Advisor to Vice President Dick Cheney. He witnessed firsthand the shift from engaging with China in the hopes of liberalizing the country to what that engagement policy has cost America. Steve, thank you so much for joining us. Now we're hearing calls from this administration for China to reform, rebalance its economy, even open up its economy. Now, if past is prologue, and given the events that went down on June 4th, 1989, how likely is China to change this time around?
Roughly from 1989 to 1991, when you look at China and Russia as bookends, the Soviet Union dissolving. And there was this notion that somehow the West, free markets, the culture and civilization had somewhat, quote unquote, won, and that China, like many others, was going to seek to emulate in some way, shape, or form, adapt to at least accommodate the dominance of Western civilization. And what we have learned for the better part of 40 years is that changes within China when it comes to political system have been very, very minor. And even on the economic system, they haven't really adapted to our way of thinking or operating. They have taken advantage of those things.
And Steve, as Feng noted above, the Chinese Communist Party doesn't operate as a normal society, at least not the way the West understands. Has the U.S. learned that lesson? Are we seeing that play out in the way this administration is dealing with China, as in holding it accountable?
Well, I think it's adjusting in the following way. For a lot of my life, we engaged with an idea that basically people all over the world are innately the same, and they might be prisoners of a bad system, but if you find a way to reform or open that system, then those same people, just like us and our friends and neighbors abroad, they would just seek a better life for their family, the better opportunity for their children, more stability and opportunity generally for their society. All those things were deemed as universal goals and aspirations. But what we're learning is that our influence from the outside might be more marginal than we anticipated. And so I think what the Trump administration is adapting to is really looking at how do we set the international system in a way that aligns with what we need to do bilaterally with China, that contains malign influences and leaves it to the Chinese people and those that lead them to sort out what their internals are. That might be a brutal direction to adjust, and it's sad on a human level in a certain sense. But we have to be honest that over the last generation, we have not moved the needle on some structural human rights issues the way that had been promised and the way that our national interests and values should dictate.
Steve Yates, thank you so much for those insights.
Thank you.
Next, let's hear from today's youth on China's so-called opening up and about their attitudes towards the Chinese regime. NTD's Flora Hua brings us details.
What do you think China as a market now, carrying a very huge market, do you think China should open up more?
Yeah, I have done business in China before, and I mean, you hope that the workers producing the products that you might be buying are paid a decent wage and have decent conditions, and that there are environmental controls that are helpful for our global commons and our air and water. You don't always get the sense that that's happening in China.
The Chinese Communist Party has long profited off the U.S. trade surplus, and I think this time the U.S. should take a much tougher stance toward China. To transfer internal pressure and unrest, I believe the CCP will likely try to appear more conciliatory to the U.S. government. Because if exports really come to a halt and Chinese people start losing jobs, they may rise up to protest, and that's something the CCP doesn't want to see.
Just now, we heard from today's youth about opinions on the Chinese regime. Joining us now to dig deeper is Joshua Phillip, senior investigative reporter with the Epoch Times, who's covered Chinese Communist Party subversion for years. Josh, thank you so much for joining us to share insight. Now, to begin, what ultimately is the fundamental difference when it comes to Western governments and something like the Chinese Communist Party? What do U.S. officials need to know to understand how to approach the CCP?
There's this whole slogan in China, there'd be no new China without the CCP. Absolutely not true. Most of the Asian world, look at South Korea, came up without needing communism. I would actually say it's the opposite. There would be no new China without the USA, because all the wealth of China, the entire economic boom, it came mainly through U.S. investment. The CCP does not really respect free markets. The Chinese Communist Party engages in some of the most abusive trade policies of anywhere in the world. In fact, Trump even acknowledged this, saying that they're the worst abuser they've identified. That's why he had 145% tariffs on it. And so the whole idea that by engaging with the Chinese Communist Party that somehow it's going to magically change, we've been trying that for decades and it has not worked. What we've actually found is the opposite. If you open up a channel for the CCP, they will not change, but they will try to change you.
So should the U.S. just not deal with it, or how should U.S. officials approach this?
I wonder sometimes if we've lost our minds thinking the CCP is going to change when again, experience has shown repeatedly, no, it does not. Even internally, the CCP regards this as its number one enemy. Its own doctrine says they cannot coexist in the same world as the United States. Every action they take diplomatically and globally is to undermine the United States. They say this behind closed doors, they say it in the open, they say it in their military doctrine, and somehow we still think that they don't really mean what they say. But then actions, I'd say, speak louder than words, and every one of those also is to undermine the United States. Why do we open the door for this? We know they're doing it.
All right, Josh, as always, thank you so much for your insights.
Hey, pleasure, thank you.
Coming up, a young Chinese billionaire almost lost it all over a tech tank-shaped ice cream. Why did this simple dessert trigger such fear in the Chinese regime? Stay with us to find out. Welcome back. Now the story of a young Chinese celebrity that almost lost it all after accidentally getting a little too close to the Chinese regime's red line. This young man's name is Li Jiaqi. He's a Chinese social media personality known for his watch and shop live stream. To get a sense of scale for his success, he once sold more than $600 million worth of products via live stream in a single day. But 2 years ago, his career went from a raging success to a nightmare, all because he promoted an ice cream dessert that looks like a miniature tank. The problematic ice cream bar appeared on his live stream one day before the anniversary of the June 4th Tiananmen massacre. The date is considered a deeply sensitive red line by the Chinese regime.
就我们这还算好的，因为推测的他们还有坦克突突。什么？坦克突突。
After showcasing the tank-shaped ice cream treat, Li Jiaqi stopped live streaming for more than 3 months. Speculation roared at the time, with social media posts questioning whether Li's live streams were cut off by Chinese internet regulators. Around the same time, Chinese authorities also issued regulations for live streamers, warning them to not touch on topics considered sensitive by the Chinese regime, and saying that violators would face consequences like having their accounts banned or even criminal punishment. The sensitive topic Li may have ventured too close to, the 1989 Tiananmen Square massacre. Many Westerners learned of the tragedy through this image, known as the Tank Man. For decades, information about it has been censored across China. Keywords like June 4th, Tank Man, and the Tiananmen massacre are scrubbed from the Chinese web. Because of it, much of China's younger generations, like Li Jiaqi and his fans, are completely unaware of the Chinese regime's massacre. And some of those young people say they'd rather remain unaware.
And to be honest, if I wasn't studying abroad and I'm just living in China, not knowing them wouldn't bother me. And now, even I know them and I realize that I couldn't have learned about these back in China, it still doesn't really bother me.
For decades, the Chinese Communist Party has enforced strict information censorship and brainwashing education on the Chinese people. But in a surprising turn, the apparent shutdown of his live streams over a mere dessert sparked curiosity among many young Chinese. They began asking questions. Why are tanks banned? What really happened on June 4th, 1989? A tank-shaped ice cream rattled China's communist leadership. So much so, the regime poured hundreds of millions of dollars into censoring the internet, trying hard to block public access to free information. But here's the question. Why would a regime that relies on economic growth to hold power pour so much into controlling online information?
The CCP hides and distorts its own history to cover up its crimes. Everyone knows only criminals fear exposure. So the regime uses state mechanisms to impose a high-pressure policy of collective amnesia on the younger generation. As a result, society in general has almost no awareness of the Tiananmen Square massacre. The topic of June 4th is essentially non-existent. It's a sensitive word censored on the internet.
And now we have NTD's Flora Hua with us. She's been talking with young Chinese people over the past couple of days. Flora, what was your main takeaway?
Yes, Tip, I felt hope that many young Chinese people are still fighting for democracy and freedom until today. And there's one story I want to share with you, where a smart young man told me that this is his duty. That's the exact same thing a student in Beijing said 36 years ago before going to protest.
That sounds very inspiring. Let's go and listen to that now.
The Chinese Communist Party, as what you just described, is tightening its control over its own people and suppressing its own people. And then, in the meanwhile, on the international stage, China said, we welcome Western countries to do trade with China and, welcome foreign investment, foreign companies to come in China to do business. So how do you see this phenomenon?
Like what I experienced in China, the Chinese Communist Party always regard United States as an evil state and as a rival. And right now, I think the people of the United States should wake up to say what the lies that CCP has made to the world. Because the CCP has just promised the world that they will change the human rights condition and to make the world accept CCP to trade with the Western world. But the CCP has never changed its human rights suppression to its own people. And the trade with the Western world is just a tool of the CCP to seize power, so making money, to just infiltrate, like what I said, to infiltrate the West world and to just subvert the West state, like United States government. So I believe it's a 100% hypocrisy.
How does the younger generation in China view the history they've inherited and their access to an open internet?
We must not forget history. If we do, future generations will have no idea what this evil regime has done.
The contrast between not knowing and later learning the truth was shocking for me. That's why, now that I'm in a land of freedom, I feel the need to support those fighting for democracy.
36 years later, the events of that fateful day, June 4th, 1989, are still impacting us to this day, as the U.S. once again figures out next steps with China.
And that's all for today's news. Thanks for tuning in. Stay with us for NTD Evening News at 6 p.m. Eastern Time, 3 p.m. Pacific.